X here. It is Monday, and it's a beautiful Monday. I hope everybody's doing well out there. Shout out to the people who are hopping in the chat. Shout out Troy Mack. Vamos to you. Vamos to you, OJ22. Hand dab to you. Do me a favor. You getting in? Y'all know the goal. The goal is always, over at the HCP, the goal is always to get 100 likes per show. 100 likes per show. That's what you want to do. You want to get the 100 likes per show. So make sure you're helping out the algorithm right there and hitting that like button as you come in. Leave comments. Leave the comments. Leave the comments. And let's try to get to 100 likes. Chicano Profit. Appreciate you for rolling through. So some topics to talk about today, obviously. A lot happened over the weekend. This was upset city over the weekend. This is why you fight the fights. This is why you fight the fights. The Tank fans, they love doing this thing, right? Where Tank versus this guy, Tank versus that guy, Tank versus that guy in these mythical matchups, right? And what happened again over the weekend, it's another example of why we want to take fights off of paper and put them into reality. Take fights off of paper and put them into reality. The Tank fans love to keep fights on paper, in particular them. But a lot of fan bases like to keep fights on paper. It's a weird thing that I observed here off and on in my 15 years on the YTBC is you have certain fan bases who like to keep fights on paper because they can then say, we win this mythical matchup based off of what? Based off of nothing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Tank has God power. That's why. That's why he wins. That's why he beats Roberto Duran in a mythical matchup of 135. But now dudes are doing mythical matchups of guys in the same weight class at the same time. And that's where we're at. But once again, this past weekend proved that's why we don't do that. When we take fights off of theoretical paper and put them out into the world, in reality, crazy stuff happens. That's how you get on the same weekend. You get Navarette losing. You get Santillan losing. You get Fury losing. You get Cordina losing. You get Jaya Opaya on Queer Street in the 11th to 12th round against Metis Bradis. That's how you get this stuff, fellas. It's like you can't keep fights on paper. You take them off of paper and put them into reality, stuff happens. Stuff happens. And more, fellas, we're in this boxing space, this world right now where you can see it when you're putting pound for pound lists together. Outside of like those top 4 to 6 guys, 7 through 20, they're not living up to expectations. Stocks are going up, down, up, down. These guys aren't consistent. And that's why we respect fighters like Usyk, Inoue, Bud, Canelo, the models of consistency. They're just models of consistency. They don't lose to good fighters. They beat good fighters. They have great moments. They have great performances. Models of consistency. And more we're getting guys coming up, coming up the ranks and then falling back down because they can't keep that consistency. They can't keep it going. And we saw that again over the weekend is you had favorite after favorite after favorite after favorite losing. That's why we take fights off of paper and why we want to get them off of paper. Why? Because it's becoming increasingly difficult for guys who don't feel bad if you're getting these predictions wrong, fellas. Because dudes who are paid to do this, it's their livelihood. They're there to make the casinos a ton of money. A ton of money. They get paid a ton of money to do it. And they're favoring Cordina 6-1, and he loses. They're favoring Navarette 6.5-1, loses. Santillan favorite, loses. Fury, by the time opening bell, Usyk is in plus money. He's the underdog. Fury loses. Loses. It was the trendy pick. Myself, I trapped in this. Jaya Opaya to win by late stoppage. Loses. I mean, wins, but by decision. So that's where we're at. I'd rather watch Tank fight anybody than watch Shakur Stevenson fight, regardless of who he's fighting. I think you're in the majority there, Chauncey. Shout out to Chauncey. I love it when these people, a lot of upsets, the sport gets predictable at times. So when, I'm here for it. I'm here for the unpredictable. I'm here for the chaos. And that's what we had over the weekend. How about we do Davis versus, yeah, we're all there. We're all there with that. Shout out to Nando in the chat, Chauncey, Wheelchair Man John. It was a very entertaining card. So let's get to it. I jinxed Navarette Day because I started rolling the R's. We behaved like we arrived. Navarette, that there was that 1 pound for pound list where Sunday night in the middle of the night, I'm like, I'm gonna sneak Navarette into my top 10 pound for pound in that number 10 spot. I'm gonna sneak him in there. We behaved like we arrived, right? I started calling the dude. I started rolling the R's. I started calling him Emmanuel Navarette. We started to behave like we arrived, put the pinky up, and what happens? Ivan, Igor, whatever his name is, Alexander Baranchek comes in and upsets Navarette. I should have continued to call this guy Manny Navarette. That's where I messed up. This is on me. This is on me, fellas. I take this L. This is on me. I messed us up. We started to behave like we arrived, and I should have continued to call him Manny Navarette. And it's just a different thing. But I'll tell you this. We're not jumping off the bandwagon. This is not over. This is not over, fellas. This is the thing with Navarette, though. 7th weight class. He was going for his fourth weight class where he wins a title, right? And it gets to a point where it's just the ceiling starts to hit. And that's where Navarette is right now. Notice I'm going to just start calling him Navarette again. I'm not rolling the R's. I'm not trying to impress people anymore. It's Navarette. And we need to get back to that. But the thing is, at 135, he's sort of a guy without a weight class, right? Remember when Arturo Gatti said that? He said, I can't make 140 anymore. I can't compete at 147. I'm a guy without a weight class. That's sort of the territory where Navarette is right now. Can't make 130 anymore. 135. The issue with 135 for Navarette is this. 122, 126, 130. He was a headache. He was a headache to deal with for guys because we talked to Valdez. We talked to Liam Wilson. And both of them told us that this guy is a handful because he's so awkward. It does not, when you get in the ring with this guy, it does not look the same as when you're watching film. When you're watching film, it's like he's not that impressive, but he's awkward. He's got strength going backwards as well, man strength, and he was able to body guys in lower weight classes. His awkwardness, his size, his strength gave guys trouble. But now at 135, those things that compensated for his deficiencies aren't going to show up as much. The strength isn't going to have, he's not going to have the same power. He's not going to have the same strength. It's not going to affect guys at 135 the same way it did at 122, 126, 130. And that's where we're at now with Navarette. And I think his run as a top 5 guy in a weight class is over. Anywhere between 1 and 5 in a weight class, I think that's over at lightweight. I don't think he'll get there at lightweight. However, we're not jumping off the bandwagon. I'm still leading the Navarette bandwagon. I'm still on it. We don't throw action fighters away after losses. That's the rule here, right? We don't throw action fighters away after losses. So it wasn't an entertaining fight. It was, quite frankly, it was the worst title fight I've seen since Raleigh Romero and Ishmael Barroso, when our guy Barroso was just ravaged and robbed of a great victory. That being said, Navarette still has a lot of good things to offer the sport. He's active, one of the few fighters that fought 3 times last year. A professional, and he can make for good action fights. So you just match this guy correctly at 135. He doesn't need to win titles. He may even back into a title one day. He may even win a title at 135. I'm not shutting the door on that. But what I'm saying is I'm still here. I'm still here. Still with the cowboy hat on. Mother Mary's beads around the neck. The Navarette show still goes on, but I'm not calling him Navarette anymore, man. I jinxed us. I messed us up. That's my bad. We're going back to Manny Navarette, but not a top 5 guy at 135. I don't think that's in his future. However, I can't believe he lost to Baranchek. And speaking of Baranchek, what a nice little run it's been for the Ukrainians, right? They picked up 3 belts in 7 days. Had it not for bad scorecards last year, Lomachenko and Haney, they'd have 9 belts right now and 2 undisputed champions. And God only knows, man, like there's something in the Ukrainian water when it comes to boxing because Vodzik, look out for Vodzik. If Vodzik pulls this off next month, this is a high for Ukrainian boxing. Just putting that out there. I'm putting it out in the world. Crazy things are going on. Usyk cements himself as the greatest fighter of this era. We'll talk. We're about to get into that. Nothing against Baranchyk and never far from, but I didn't think Baranchyk won the fight, to be honest. It was a close fight. Could have won either way. That's great matchmaking for the fans. Salute Cali. Shout out to Shoeshine Boxing. So I think Navarette needed. It's been 35 fights since he lost. So let's give the guy a break. Let's cut him a break. Yeah, he came in. He needs to change. He need diet to train. He came in looking like he had some Bud Lights before the fight. He was a little pudgy in the midsection, Chicano. He was a little pudgy in that midsection. I'm just saying. I saw it, and I'm like, ugh. That's what he looks like at 135. Don't know about this, and he looks slow. He looked like, the uncle at the birthday party who had a few too many, and he's trying to play sports that he used to be good at. That's kind of like the vibe Navarette put off over the weekend, but we're still here. It's going to be fine. So before we get into Usyk, I want pause. I want to say Maris Bradis put some fear, put some scares into us late in that fight against Opaya. As far as Opaya, I was reserving the number 10 spot on the pound for pound list for him. All he has to do is put on a great performance. It's all he's missing against the top opponent. And Bradis, I'm sure Opaya never wants to see Bradis ever again. I would not, if they try to do it like, if they even brought up a trilogy, his team, you guys, no, keep this guy away from me forever. He already broke my jaw, broke my nose. I'm done going through hell to get these victories against this guy. Line me up with the rest of cruiserweight. It gets much easier for Opaya going forward at cruiserweight, and then he's going to transition into heavyweight. But number 10 on the pound for pound list, he's not there yet, unfortunately. For me, he's not there quite yet. The talent is there. He's going to get there. He's a top 10 talent. I think things will get easier for him as far as the landscape. Maris Bradis is just a tough dude. And once again, you look at Bradis coming off a 2-year layoff, and on top of that, he's up there in age, and you say, man, the Bradis that Usyk beat, Usyk's resume at cruiserweight just continues to age well, like fine wine. And that's what I was thinking when I'm watching that fight late. I'm like, Usyk beat this dude years ago. Good Lord. Bradis is a tough dude. That was a tough fight, and props to those warriors. Let's talk about Usyk versus Fury. So the prediction coming into the fight, and by the way, y'all hit that like button as you come in. Leave your comments. Let me know what y'all think about these thoughts. Just I'm going to download these thoughts, sort of freestyle it. Didn't prepare anything. Usyk versus Fury. Coming into the fight, we predicted Usyk decision. I think that was the safest play. It was the safest play that was on the board. Usyk decision. As I'm watching the fight, I thought it was a fairly easy fight to score. Going in, I thought there was going to be a lot of subjectivity. I didn't think that as the fight was playing out, and I didn't think it after. I thought it was a fairly easy fight to score. I think they're trying to do this thing where they're trying to find rounds for Fury, and in order to say, I can see Fury 3rd round. I can see no. So I had Usyk winning 1 through 3. Then I had Fury winning 4 through 7. And then I had Usyk winning 8 through 12. For me, it was pretty easy. The closest round was probably 3. It was probably 3. And what I notice from people is what they'll do is they'll say, if you flip this round and flip that round, then you can get Fury 114, 113. But they never do it in reverse, right? They never say, you know what? The sixth round was a little close. The seventh round was a little close. They never go the other way with it, or seldom they do. And I just thought this was a decisive victory for Usyk against Fury. A lot of times we have close fights. And when we have close fights, let's say 115, 113, 114, 113, something like that, right? 115, 112, whatever it may be. They'll say, well, it's only 2 to 3 point difference, so it's a close fight, so it's debatable. But a lot of close fights are not debatable. They're not. A lot of close fights are decisive. And this was one of them. I thought this was a fairly easy fight to score. I thought it was a decisive victory for Usyk. It played out a lot like I expected, with some differences. Let me say this: there's a clear difference. They're both, I think, all-time greats, and I'll explain in a little bit what I consider an all-time great, because I have like a definitive explanation for what I consider. Because a lot of people say all-time great, they just throw out arbitrary things. You have guys who get mad at pound for pound lists, and they have like 27 guys in their top 10 list. They got dudes out here saying top 20 all-time pound for pound, and they got like 87 guys in their top 20 all-time pound for pound. It's ridiculous. I have like criteria as to what I think an all-time great is, and I'll explain why I think fighters like Usyk, Lomachenko, Mayweather, Pacquiao, etc., Canelo are all-time greats in a way. But I think the mic is back up. Let me check it again real quick. I unplugged it. Check. All right, we're good. There's a clear difference, I think, between Usyk and Lomachenko. Lomachenko will concede some things, and he'll leave some fights on the table, open to interpretation. Haney being one of them. Teofimo, he started late. Salido, a lot of controversy behind that fight, but left some things open for interpretation. Usyk takes all that stuff off the table. Usyk goes into a zone, we call it the Mamba mentality, the Kobe effect, the Jordan effect, the Tom Brady effect, where special athletes go. We didn't see that from Jokic last night, right? You watched Nuggets, Timberwolves Game 7. Certain athletes, when it goes to a certain point, they go into another gear that nobody else has. And they just take things off the table for their opponent. It's just like, no, it's not your night. It's my night. I'm here. I'm the guy. I'm him. It's over. Usyk has had several fights where middle rounds, there's some dicey things going on, and then he takes it to another gear that his opponent just cannot match. And he's doing that against great opposition now in that cruiserweight, and really good competition, I would say, at heavyweight. More on that in a minute as well. When I'm watching this fight, and I have it scored 4-3 for Fury after 7 rounds. And Fury's having his moments now. Fury, 5th, 6th round in particular, he was very strong. Fury starts to get in his bag. He starts to walk to the side, do his little showboating. And that's when Fury's at his best. Fury's at his best when he's free fighting, pumping the jab, showboating a little bit, and he's free fighting, right? And he's throwing combinations off of these shots. You mixing in some backwards movement with some front foot stuff. So he's mixing things up. He's completely in his bag at that point, right? So what happens is Fury is having a lot of success, and I feel like he's bothering Usyk a little bit with the body punching in particular. And we talked about the body punching coming into this fight, right? And he's slowing Usyk down a little bit in those rounds. And he's landing some hellacious uppercuts and some really good body punching. And I'm saying after round 7 is 4-3, I'm saying, man, this is a Fury fight right now. And you see the betting odds flip, reflected. They were up to Fury minus 1,000, fellas. 10-1 favorite. around the middle rounds for Fury. And a lot of guys in that moment, in that scenario, will fold. They will fold. You got a guy 40 pounds bigger than you. He's in his bag. He's doing his thing. But what happens? What happens? And I watched this in the replay after I knew what exactly happened in between round 7 and round 8, because there was this controversy that people love to brew up. People love to brew up controversy after big fights, and they create them out of thin air. So there's rumor going around, and people are showing slow-mo video of Usyk possibly taking an inhaler in between round 7 and 8. But what really happened? And this is crazy. And it's once again where I talk about certain athletes, the special ones, go to places in these moments that other athletes can't access. They can't access these places. They can't do it. They can't access these places. Usyk's one of the ones who can. Usyk sits on a stool, and his trainer says, "Do you want the crucifix?" And he says, "Yes." Pulls out Usyk's chain, the crucifix. Usyk kisses it, closes his eyes, says a little prayer. In Ukrainian, stands up. Soon as the 8th round starts, he starts to batter Tyson Fury. Absolutely manhandle and savage and batter Tyson Fury. He goes to a place that only a handful of boxers at best can go to. He goes to a place where maybe a dozen athletes in the world today, maybe, can go to. He goes to a place that only all-time greats can go to, fellas. Only they can access them. We've accessed them. If you're any kind of athlete, maybe you've accessed them in the smallest form, maybe in Little League or something. He goes to a place at the highest level of the sport, and he accesses that place, and he completely batters Tyson Fury for the next 5 rounds. And when we talk about separation, when we talk about what's different about Usyk that's from other fighters outside of maybe a handful, that's it. That's what it is. That's what it is. It's the IQ. It's the constant pressure he puts on his opponents that eventually gets to them and breaks them, and then he stays in that moment. And he not only does he stay there, he goes to another gear, but he can go to a place like that, 8th round, 9th round, 10th round, 11th round, 12th round. I don't want to hear it. Fury didn't win any of those. The judge who had it 114, 113 for Fury gave the 11th and 12th round for Fury. I don't want to hear it. I'm tired of the comparative rounds. I'm tired of the amateur style scoring that people are out there doing, bending themselves in the pretzel to find results for fighters that don't exist. Haney did not beat Lomachenko, man. I'm sorry to break it to y'all. Tough talk. He lost the fight anyway. You got to deal with it. But dudes will go into amateur style scoring. Tyson Fury is trying to score points. Usyk's trying to hurt Fury. That's the difference. I'm tired of the amateur style scoring that people are implementing to try to find results for fighters that don't exist. In no galaxy, in no universe did Fury have an argument to win this fight. And luckily, we had 2 judges that got it right. Luckily, we did. I had the fight 116, 111. I didn't think it was as close as people said. I didn't. I thought 4th or 7th, Fury did some good things. Fury had some really good exchanges in those rounds. Other than that, this was an Usyk fight. 8 through 12, Usyk completely took it off the table. He beat Tyson Fury down in that 8th round to set up that exchange late in the 9th round. Beat him down. Bloodied him up. And you started to see Fury wilt. You started to see Fury give. And you started to see the levels in between those 2 guys. We talked before Bud versus Errol how there's a difference in levels between these 2 guys. They're trying to build this fight up as this toss-up fight. 2 great welterweights, and it's not that. Errol Spence is a really good modern welterweight, but he's fighting a special fighter who can translate to many different eras in Bud Crawford. And we saw on that night, there's not one level separating those 2 guys. This isn't just a stylistic nightmare for Errol Spence. There's multiple levels between these 2 guys. And we saw the same thing on this fight Saturday night. When the 8th round came around, you saw the levels that existed between Usyk and Fury. And the 40-pound difference can compensate for some of that stuff and make it a closer fight. But other than that, we're talking pound for pound level stuff. There are multiple levels separating an Usyk from a Fury, and we saw that. We saw that on Saturday night. The 9th round, I didn't see controversy behind it, other than, look, man, just because you hit a guy and he falls backwards towards the ropes doesn't make it a knockdown. Fury's kind of bouncing off the ropes. And I felt like it was the correct call to call a knockdown when he did, because Fury's trapped in that corner at that point, and he looked out of it. However, this is what I'm tired of with judges. Give the guy a standing 8 count, rub his gloves off, and get out of the way. I'm tired of these referees doing this thing where they count to 8, and some of them count slower than others. They rub the gloves off. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? They give Fury an extra 8 seconds after the standing 8 count. And that's the type of stuff that bothers me. That's the only thing I was really bothered by, to be quite honest with you. It's the only thing I was really bothered by as far as the 9th round. But Usyk starts to land those big punches, and Fury just had no answer for it. And this is another thing I was impressed by when it comes to Alexander Usyk. When Wilder had, and this is why it felt different. When Wilder had Fury hurt, Fury gets right back up, right? But when he had him hurt, Wilder's a spaz. Wilder just doesn't have ring IQ, ring generalship, none of that stuff. He's a spaz. And when he had Fury hurt, he panics and he starts to spaz out and he starts to headhunt. There were exchanges where he completely misses and he almost does a 360. Just amateur style fighting from Wilder when he had Tyson Fury hurt. Like Rocky versus Apollo Creed type stuff. When it came to Alexander Usyk, the bell saves Tyson Fury. And I feel like the bell really saved him because Usyk, I feel like more high IQ, technical, and better with his punch placement, likely gets Fury out of there late in that 9th round. If he has maybe another 30 seconds. But he doesn't. So Fury recovers, gets his 10th round. And this is what I'm impressed by with Usyk. Usyk gets to the beginning of the 10th round. And I think Fury expected Usyk to jump all over and throw wild punches. And it didn't happen. Usyk just goes right back to high IQ. Let's set things up to the body and go right back upstairs. It's the levels of Usyk. I'm going to go down, back up, down, back up. It's the angles of Usyk. It's the smart pressure that he applies to his opponents. He fights at the same pace, so he's just wearing them down round by round by round. And once again, it's not that Usyk fights at the same pace. He ratchets it up, actually. His energy goes up, and his opponents start to wilt. And that's where you start to see the separation. And you saw the separation in Usyk and other heavyweights in that 10th round. Other heavyweights like a Deontay Wilder will get Tyson Fury hurt, and they'll start to spaz out, and they'll start to go in this mode where I got to get him. Usyk just stays patient and goes right back to high ring IQ, ring generalship. I'm going to use my angles. I'm going to play it smart. I'm going to win this round. And if the knockout presents itself, I'll go for it then. But it didn't, and he didn't go for it. And he just continued to break Fury down rounds 10, rounds 11, rounds 12. And he wins a clear decision. A decisive decision. Shouldn't have been a split decision. Because there is no avenue, there is no pathway for Tyson Fury to win that fight. In no world, in no universe, was Fury the better fighter on Saturday night. None. Usyk clearly cemented himself as the best heavyweight in the world today. By far. It's clear. Not only is he undisputed, but there's nobody out there that I would say comes close to being better than Alexander Usyk at that heavyweight. So he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, the baddest man on the planet. Pound for pound, to me, at that point becomes small potatoes when it comes to Usyk. Like, people are out there getting in their feelings if Usyk's not pound for pound on their pound for pound list. Why are you even worried about that? This dude is the baddest man on the planet. The baddest man on the planet is Alexander Usyk, and it's not disputable. You cannot dispute it. He is the guy. For years upon years upon years, that was the tag that every athlete wanted. There was nothing bigger than that, the baddest man on the planet. Alexander Usyk, although that tag might not be as big as it once was, Alexander Usyk is that guy now. Lineal. Owns all the belts. And it's a damn shame that in 2 weeks, apparently, he'll no longer be undisputed. You talk about the stupidity of boxing, the ignorance of boxing. Imagine after 25 years we wait for this moment. And this is how stupid boxing is and how we can't get out of our own way. 25 years we wait for this moment. It's historic. The fight ends up living up to the expectations because Fury did fight well for spurts in his fight. Lives up to expectations as an entertaining fight, as a dramatic fight. And 2 weeks later, one of the sanctioning body with their politics is going to strip the undisputed champion of the world. Just utter stupidity. Utter stupidity, especially when there's a rematch clause in October. Just completely stupid. Some of these people. But Usyk has that clutch gene. He's got it. When things get dicey, he answers the call. And once again, I'll circle back to the difference between the two Ukrainian fighters, two of the best pound-for-pound fighters of the past, however long you want to say. Loma leaves things to be desired. Loma leaves things on the table open to interpretation late in fights. As great as he is, as technical as he is, there's a lot that you can compare pound for pound when it comes to Usyk and Loma. The difference is when the fight's on the table, Usyk doesn't leave it on the table. He doesn't leave it on the table. He's going to take over the fight. He's not going to leave it open for interpretation. And in some of Loma's big moments, and I hate to do this, he's one of my favorite fighters. I don't want to criticize him, but that's the one flaw I would say is he has an arrogance to where he'll concede some things and he'll leave things open to interpretation. He'll leave things on the table that Usyk's not going to do. Usyk's not going to do. He's going to go out there and grab it. And once again, he's done that. So now we've got this. To me, Usyk is a sum of all parts type of fighter where we talk about when people ask me, why is he an all-time great? He's an all-time great. It's the resume. It's the what he's done at cruiserweight. But also he's done it all on the road. He's done it on the road. His whole career. So there's that. It's the accomplishments of becoming undisputed at cruiserweight in the 4-belt era. It's the accomplishment of becoming the baddest man on the planet, undisputed and lineal, also at heavyweight. It's a tough jump. He does it. He gives up a lot of weight in doing it, but it's also performance-based. You can spot a special athlete. You can just spot it from a mile away. And when you watch Usyk perform, it's like that's a special athlete. That's a special athlete. It's a performance-based thing, too. It's not how he's winning. It's not just who he's beating. It's not that he's doing it on the road. It's not just the achievements, but it's the performances, too. This guy is putting on great performances. This guy has been in multiple moments in middle of fights where you're like, I don't know, man. This is looking dicey. And again, on Saturday, it happened. You're down 4-3. You're down 10-1 in the live betting odds. Things are not looking good. You kiss the crucifix. You go to a place that not many other athletes can access, and you just go to work. 8 through 12, you just beat up on a guy that's 40 pounds heavier than you. You beat up on a guy, and how embarrassing is this, fellas? How is this aged? And I'm trying to choose peace today. I'm trying not to be one of these people laughing at the Fury people because Fury actually, I thought he performed well for himself on Saturday night. He gave us a good fight. Didn't win the fight, but gave us a good fight, performed well. So I don't want to take this out on him. But people are embarrassingly calling this guy the greatest heavyweight of all time. Some people top 10 all time. It's just ridiculous stuff, right? That has aged very poorly after the Ngannou performance. And the thing that I love most about Usyk at heavyweight, the thing that I love most about his run recently is this. There have been these lazy narratives, and I love seeing the lazy narratives just completely blown into smithereens. And one of the narratives was that these giants of today's era, these heavyweights are too big. They're way too big for heavyweights of previous generations. Imagine Joe Louis, Joe Frazier, imagine these smaller guys, Larry Holmes, George Foreman. Imagine these smaller guys trying to compete with these giants of today. Imagine them trying to compete with the 6'9" fighter who's light on his feet, great puncher, great punch placement, great athlete. Imagine them trying to compete with the Tyson Furies and Anthony Joshuas of the world. These guys are just too big. It's a different era of heavyweights, and some dudes are out there saying, now we need to split up the weight classes. Now we need to make a super heavyweight and heavyweight because who can compete with these guys? There's no way. There's just no way smaller heavyweights will have success. And meanwhile, a guy who fights like a rank amateur the whole time this is going on, Deontay Wilder is weighing in at like 215 and 220 and winning belts. But Alexander Usyk comes into the weight class as a cruiserweight, a smaller heavyweight. It runs through the division. It's hilarious. And he weighs in at 223. And he fights a guy who's considered unbeatable. One of the greatest heavyweight that ever lived. Because, who could beat him? Look at him. Look how tall he is. How big he is. Look how light on his feet he is. There's just no way. There's just no way anybody can cut. A blown-up middleweight? No way. No way. A blown-up middleweight. There's no way he's going to beat Tyson Fury. There's just no way. He's the greatest that ever lived. Baddest man on the planet. And what happens? Usyk comes into the division, and he's just beating up on these dudes. He's not just beating him, man. He's beating up on these dudes. Methodically beating them. And these are decision fights, but he's beating them up in these decisions. Anthony Joshua, twice. Anthony Joshua, I thought, fought a good fight both fights. Second fight in particular, Anthony Joshua makes the correct adjustments. Everybody's saying, Usyk can't take it to the body, AJ. He can't. So what does AJ do? He goes to the body. Still can't knock him out. Still loses. Tyson, you know what? Usyk can't take it to the body. He can't take it to the body. Much like they're saying about Lomachenko. Now, can't take it to the body. And what happens? Fury goes to the body, middle rounds. Nothing happens. Takes the punches well to his chin. No, there's no way these smaller heavyweights can take these punches of these bigger fighters. There's no way. All these smaller heavyweights in previous eras, those were thrown on Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, George Foreman. These guys have been too. Joe Louis, Rocky Marcial. These guys are just too small for the current heavyweights. And not only that, fellas, like these guys are too athletic now. They're just too athletic. I hear the same thing with basketball. Same thing with that. Michael Jordan was playing against plumbers. Just no way. It's no way. These athletes today, meanwhile, these guys are traveling all over the place, carrying all over the place. I'm tired of hearing these lazy narratives, and I love when they're blown to smithereens. Love when they're blown to smithereens. Alexander Usyk comes into this weight class and completely runs through it and ravages it in a short period of time at 220 pounds. And it blows to smithereens this narrative that heavyweights of previous eras couldn't compete in this era. And I've been saying it for a while, man. And it doesn't take away with Usyk his greatness. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Because multiple things can be true at one time. And it can be true that this is a historically weak heavyweight era. But we can still be impressed with what Usyk has done collectively in his career, the achievements of it, in the short period of time that he's done it at heavyweight, and the fact that he's given up a lot of weight doing it. But this narrative, it was just blown up. And there have been some of us out here screaming and shouting about this. Dude, stop it. Stop saying that heavyweights of previous eras can't compete with these dudes just because they're bigger. Tyson Fury is a really good fighter. Anthony Joshua, really good fighter. Really good fighters look great, and sometimes even special to some people in weak eras. And to be quite honest with you, heavyweight post-Klitschko, even during the Klitschko era, the Klitschko was great. Post-Lennox Lewis, say, it's been a weak heavyweight era, historically weak. But the good thing about it was that's one of the good things that Fury did when Fury took that throne away from Klitschko and beat him. What we said was there's a lot of flawed but marketable and entertaining fighters that can now mix it up at the top and at least make this entertaining. The talent pool is naturally not going to be what it was at heavyweight because a lot of heavyweights are now playing in NFL, in the NBA. So the pool has gotten smaller, right? So naturally, as the pool has gotten smaller, the crop isn't going to produce as good of results. That's just common sense. However, it's in an entertaining era, and I do believe that Fury and Anthony Joshua are really good fighters. And for Usyk to come in and be not great, but really good fighters in the weight class, giving up a lot of weight, after already conquering a tough cruiserweight division. Because when Usyk ran through cruiserweight, that was I felt a historically good cruiserweight era and historically good cruiserweight run. We just didn't notice it as Americans collectively because cruiserweight isn't an American division. But that was talented, and that was a great run he put together. And then to do that and then conquer the big men, at heavyweight is extremely impressive. And to do it on the road as well, and then to pass the eye test with flying colors, it's impressive. And what do I consider an all-time great? So you take an era, and this is the thing, this is stuff that bothers me. Hold on one second, let me close this door real quick. Dogs are hopping in. So this is what I consider, and I try to make it as definitive as possible so people can understand where I'm going. Because people just throw out these terms and they don't explain what the terms mean, what their criteria is for it. So I consider an all-time great. An easy way to do it is if you were at one point considered number one pound for pound or in the discussion, I think you're in the discussion for all-time great status. If you're at any moment considered the best pound for pound fighter in the world or in that discussion, I think you're in the discussion for all-time great. So we take an era, and people don't understand, like, people throw out generation, our era. What is that, though? Is it 30 years? Is it 40 years? Let's just say it's 20 years. Yeah, it's fair. 2 decades, 20 years. So we go from 2004 to 2024. Who are the fighters that during that era, those 20 years, were considered either pound for pound or in the discussion? Well, we go back and we'll say Floyd, and we'll say B-Hop. And then there was that time and place when it was Pacquiao and Mayweather going back and forth. So you throw Pacquiao in that mix. And then we'll throw Juan Manuel Marquez in the mix because he knocks out Pacquiao and he gets in the discussion. There was a point in time, I hate to do this, but Andre Ward's in the mix, right? He's in that discussion. So we throw him in the mix. I don't consider him all-time great, but just throw him in the mix. And then there's Golovkin, and then there's Canelo, and then there's Inoue, and Bud, and Lomachenko. and now Usyk. So that's roughly a dozen fighters, 11, 12 in the past 20 years that you can throw in the mix for all time. Chocolatito, another one, Chocolatito in the mix. So it's a dozen fighters in the past 20 years. And then you go further and you say, all right, the next era is 84 to 2004, tougher era. So there's probably going to be about 20 fighters in the mix there. So in the past 40 years, you would say it's around 35 fighters are all-time greats. And then you go 20 years again, and you go back about 140 years, and you'll have roughly 100 fighters, 150 fighters. And to me, that's good enough. That's good enough. Like all-time great, if you're one of the best 200 pound-for-pound fighters of the past 140, 150 years, you're an all-time great, and that's good enough. That's good enough. I shouldn't have to get on here and then somebody say, would you consider top 20 all time? I don't know. Like, I'm not going to go generation to generation and get in the weeds and say, well, I think this guy was better. There's no way of us knowing. Different generations, these weight classes are different. The sizes of these guys are different. Guys are fighting more times per year back in the day than they are now. It's just a tough discussion to have. But that's what I consider an all-time great, and that's why when I say, people understand what I'm saying now when I say Canelo, when I say Inoue, when I say Bud, when I say Usyk, all-time greats, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. These were at one point, and some of them over an extended period of time, considered the best fighter in the world or in that discussion. And you'll have other guys that maybe have lingered between 5 and 10 for a long period of time, maybe 10 years that you want to throw in a discussion too. That's fine. Make exceptions for that. We get into those conversations, but that's an easy way to do it. But the reason I bring this up is when I was having this discussion on Twitter, they'll hang on to one word that you say about something. So let me give you an example. This is what I put Saturday. I've said it for a few years now. Usyk has completely blown to smithereens this lazy narrative that heavyweights of today would beat past heavyweights in these mythical matchups due to size difference. A fighter with similar size yet a bit more limited. Pay attention to this sentence right here. A fighter with similar size yet a bit more limited as compared to historically great heavyweights has come in and cleaned out the division in a short period of time. Usyk turned their advantages into disadvantages. And remember, we talked about how we don't use size, height, and reach advantage as a term anymore here. We stopped doing that years ago. It's disparity. Because fighters of today just don't know how to use their size and their height and their reach anymore, increasingly. But reading comprehension, once again, as I put that, everybody focused on the word limited. Limited. And I had the Usyk super duper fans, because there's differences in fans, right? And I had to deal with the Bud Crawford super duper fans a couple weeks ago, right? And because they'll use Bud as a tool to go after other fighters and other fan bases, and it bothers me because a lot of us here are just fans of multiple fighters who are just great. We enjoy it. We just want to enjoy things. We just want to enjoy great performances. That's all we want to do. We don't want to be in these conversations. But they focused on the word limited. You're calling Usyk limited? You're calling Usyk limited. Look at what he just did. Look at what he's put together. You're calling Usyk limited? You don't know anything about boxing. Dude, I didn't call him limited. I don't watch Usyk fight and say that's a limited fighter. No, I say it's a special fighter. I'm calling him limited as compared to other great, historically great heavyweights in the division. And I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it to focus on the fact that Usyk just blew this narrative to smithereens that you dudes have been pushing for a decade now. And you're doing it to go after fighters who have paved the way for these fighters to make so much money, go easier routes, who really went through fire. And you're doing this to go after boxing fans who picked up the sport maybe 30 years ago, plus 40, 50 years ago if you're older, Some people I know have been following the sport 40 plus years. And you try to go after them for being fuddy-duddies. No, that's not what it is. We're just trying to get you to put this stuff into proper perspective. But you go after us as the old fuddy-duddies on the front porch yelling at skateboarders. And you say these things like fighters today are more athletic than fighters previously, and there's no way those fighters would have been able to compete. So when Usyk comes in as a smaller heavyweight and destroys bigger fighters within a weight class, I'm going to bring it up. And I'm going to say that Usyk, as compared to other historically great heavyweights, is more limited. And I stand by that. He's not a limited fighter as a standalone. But as compared to other historically great heavyweights, I think he's more limited within that weight class. And I stand on that. And I have friends, like my guy Drew, the only Satch on Twitter. And this is when you go from, look, man, can we just enjoy that performance? Can we just enjoy the performance? No, we can't do that. I need you to call him a top 20 pound for pound all-time great. No, I'm not going to do that. I need you to call him one of the greatest heavyweights that ever lived. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it because now you're acting like the Fury fans. Now you're acting like the Tank fans. Because guess what? You know why I call him more limited than other great heavyweights? Because I've seen more from them. Drew, the only Sanch, do you understand that Muhammad Ali, who you're saying Usyk would beat, and there's no way of us knowing this. This is why I don't like being in these conversations. It's fine for me to just say this guy is an all-time great. Can we just leave it at that? He's an all-time great. Let's just leave it there. He's an all-time great. He's the baddest man on the planet. He's undisputed. Nobody can dispute it. He's got all the belts. He's a special fighter. He's got the Mamba mentality. One of the best fighters of our era. And you can start to get, that's an easier conversation to have. Is he the best fighter? It's an easier one to have. And all-time great. And we'll agree on that, and we'll all be happy, right? No, I need you to call him top 20 all-time. There's no way of me computing that. I don't know. I'm not going there with you. I need you to call him one of the greatest heavyweights that ever lived. I don't know. It's a historically weak heavyweight era. Let's take his resume at heavyweight. He beats AJ and he beats Fury. Do you know who Muhammad Ali fought? And he did it on the road in a lot of cases as well. Thriller in Manila, Rumble in the Jungle. Joe Frazier 3 times. Ken Norton 3 times. And I had a dude on Twitter tell me earlier that Ali lost to Ken Norton. So therefore, he can't be as great as Usyk. And Usyk would beat him. And this is when the super duper fans just become these Tank fans that they criticize. They'll criticize the Fury fans for being delusional, for calling this guy the greatest heavyweight that ever lived, one of the top 10 heavyweights that ever lived. And then Usyk beats Fury, who they've been destroying. And I'll keep it consistent. I'll say it doesn't matter to me. Fury fought a great fight. He's a really good fighter. AJ fought great fights. He's a really good fighter. On top of what he's already done at cruiserweight, both things can be true. He doesn't have to fight against historically great heavyweights for me to call him an all-time great. I'm looking at his performances. I'm looking at eye tests. I'm looking at the overall resume. It's a sum of all parts argument. But these dudes will constantly trash Fury as his rank amateur, as his bumbling idiot, as a guy who got a gift decision against Ngannou, and then Usyk beats him. And then all of a sudden they want to say, based off of that right there, it solidifies him as a guy who would beat Ali, a guy who would beat all the great heavyweights, almost all of them, whatever their argument is. He's top 20 all time. And that's when you go from becoming a fan to something else. Something else. Something way out there. Ali fights Frazier 3 times. He fights Norton 3 times. He fights Liston. He fights Holmes. He beats the baddest man George Foreman was considered the baddest man that ever lived in his prime when an aged Muhammad Ali fought him. And he beats him. And he goes through hell to beat him. So I'll be damned. I'll be damned if I see a dude beat Tyson Fury and all of a sudden put him over Muhammad Ali. And that's just, I'm just addressing right now those guys. Because once again, I don't want to be in these conversations for too long because I just sit back and I enjoy the greatness. And this is what we have right now. Look, as much as we talk about the ills of the sport, as much as we talk about how stupid it is that Usyk can become undisputed and we wait 25 years for it. We wait 25 years for it. And then 2 weeks after it happens, we strip it and take it away for no reason. Other than some BS politics. There's a rematch clause. And Usyk's team has already come out and said, we're going to honor the rematch clause in October. We'll be there. The jaw's fine. A week from now, it'll be healed. We're back in October. We'll do it again. We're going to honor that. Usyk's team is already on board. They're just waiting for Fury to confirm it. But imagine 2 weeks later, that's gone, undisputed. It's stupid, right? But as much as we talk about the ills of the sport, what's special right now is you have special athletes doing special things. And when I put out this pound for pound list probably tomorrow, what's going to happen is just as a good natured fan who's going to put together a list, have fun with, and honor the great athletes of this sport, dude's going to go just completely miserable. Completely miserable. I would love to just have 1A, 1B, 1C. I'd love to do it. But when I had 1A, 1B, dudes were miserable about it. You got to pick one. I don't need to pick one. It's my list. You have to pick one, and then dudes bully you into going 1 and 2 instead of 1A, 1B. So I'm going to pick a 1, 2, and 3. And then 2 fan bases are going to be absolutely miserable. And if I do what I think I'm going to do at number 10 tomorrow, then you're going to have a certain section, the fan base, and Chicano's going to know what I'm talking about. Their minds are going to be destroyed by it. And they're not going to be able to sleep at night off of a subjective list. But we have special fighters doing special things right now. I talked about it with Canelo, and dudes try to do this thing too. And don't let them do this, because I just gave you the criteria for what I consider all-time great. And we'll have these debates. But they try to detach Canelo from the all-time great conversation. Whatever. Let them have that. Let them do what they want. Let them be miserable. But you have a Canelo who is gonna fight the fight in winter that a lot of people want to see. There's no doubt in my mind right now. I think it'll be Bud. And a lot of people are going to like that fight. They've been calling for it, so I don't want to hear him miserable about it. But he doesn't lose to good fighters. And he loses to 2 special fighters in Mayweather and Bivol. And to me, that doesn't take you off of any kind of all-time great conversation when you have 24, 25 title fights, whatever it is, 65 total fights, and you haven't lost to a good fighter your whole career. You're undefeated against good fighters, and you end up winning a trilogy against Golovkin. But you also have right now those 3 fighters in particular: Inoue, Usyk, Bud. Bud does a special thing last July. Unfortunately, it's going to take him another 12 months to fight. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. But completely destroys Errol. And now you got Inoue in the middle of his run, right? Inoue's in his bag right now. So you've got that. And on top of that, you have Usyk come into heavyweight and beat 2 really good, much bigger fighters, in particular Fury. And I felt coming in that the question mark in this fight was Fury isn't as robotic as AJ. And being that Fury isn't as robotic as AJ, it's going to be a tougher nut to crack for Usyk in this fight. And that ended up being correct, because it wasn't until the 8th round till he started to get to Fury. The AJ fight, I feel like he got to AJ earlier, and there was more of ebbs and flows in that fight. Momentum here, momentum there. This fight was much how I thought, in which it's going to take him longer to get to Fury, but once he does, it's finito. It's game over. That's what happened. It took him longer to get there. He kisses that crucifix, says a quick prayer in Ukrainian, and then he goes to work in the 8th round and completely batters Tyson Fury for the last 5 rounds. And in doing so, he cements his legacy as, I don't need to see him doing it anymore. To be quite honest with you. Heavyweight is different than other weight classes in that NOA runs through 122, he can go to 126, right? Bud runs through 140, 147, he can go to 154. Natural progression, right? Canelo were to beat Benavidez at 168, he can go back to 175, try to do something there. There's nothing else for Usyk. He's the baddest man on the planet. That's what's unique about the heavyweight division is if you clean it out, what else is there? You can defend for years and years and years like Klitschko. I guess you add to your legacy that way. But he's beaten AJ. He's beaten Fury. I don't see anybody else. I mean, you could throw out other names. Sure. But other than rematches of Fury, trilogy against AJ if he wants to do that, stick around for the money, you can do that. He can retire after this rematch and walk off into the sunset, and his legacy is an all-time greatest cemented. For me, anyway. But that's what's great about right now is you have some truly special fighters doing special things. And don't let people take that away from you. Just sit back and enjoy it. When these fighters fight, you just sit back, enjoy it, and try not to get into these conversations. I'm trying not to get into them for too long, other than to push back a little bit. But watching Usyk on Saturday was truly a privilege. It really was. It's true. I said that about NOA after watching him fight. Having that 3-day span where we got to watch NOA and Canelo on the same weekend. And then you watch Usyk. And we'll get to watch Bud in August against Majumov. It truly is a privilege watching these guys. And the good thing, the exciting thing right now is Turki Al-Ashik is making fights that wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have happened. I don't believe this fight would have happened had it not been for Turki Al-Ashik. I think Canelo versus Bud happens in the winter because of Turki Al-Ashik. He's making great fights. Bivol versus Beterbiev would not have been scheduled had it not been for Turki Al-Ashik. So it truly is an exciting time in which Turki Al-Ashik is going to make fights that wouldn't have been made. And we'll get to see these special fighters more often. And we'll get to see them in better spots and bigger spots than had he not been around. And it's just a privilege watching these guys. And just enjoy it, man. That's the best advice I can give you. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Don't let these dudes take it away from you. But the pound-for-pound list will likely be dropped tomorrow. I don't think it's as clear-cut as people are making it out to be as Usyk #1 pound-for-pound. So more on that as the week goes on. So I'm sure this will be some heated conversations that we'll have. Usyk's greatness is he's done things, he's gone through the fire, and you can't separate that process when you talk about greatness, fellas. You have people out there trying to separate that process. They're trying to say that you don't need the belts. Tank doesn't need to fight for belts. Ryan doesn't need to fight for belts. Look at what these guys are doing without him. Look at the superstar status. But yeah, there's something else. First of all, I don't buy that. I don't buy that these guys are doing the big numbers that are being reported, number one. These guys aren't the faces of boxing. And number two, these guys aren't as respected as these other fighters who are behaving that way. If you look at Usyk, twice undisputed, 2 different weight classes. In a way, 2 different weight classes, undisputed. But 2 different weight classes, undisputed. Canelo, undisputed. What these truly great and special fighters who are at the top of the pound for pound list are telling you through their actions is you still have to go through that process. You still have to go through the fire. And that's another red pill moment. That's another white pill, I should say. That's another great thing that we're seeing as hardcore, just unbiased, good-natured, hardcore boxing fans is that's still there. That's still there. They've been trying to brainwash you that it's not. The Leonard Ellerbe, Stephen Espinosas of the world have been trying to come out there and say, it's a new day. It's a new day. We don't need to do that anymore. We need to think outside the box now because there's only 150,000 of you left. We need to think outside the box now. We need to fight the Jake Pauls of the world. And what these dudes are telling you is no. We're true to our roots. We're respectful of the process. We understand what dudes, fighters of previous generations went through, and we're doing it too. What Usyk is telling you is, I value the belts. Even though they're going to strip me 2 weeks from now, I understand the process that I have to go through to become an all-time great. Canelo, same thing. In a way, same thing. Bud, same thing. When you get 20 plus title fights, when every fight is a title fight, when every time you step in the ring, you're the marked man, you're the target, you're the hunted, and yet you still continue to win fight after fight after fight. Once again, it's not just who you're beating, it's not just performances. At that point, it's you continue to show up. And you continue to meet or exceed expectations. It's different when you have the target on your back. It's different. It's different when you're the dude that everybody's gunning for. It's a lot of pressure that comes with that. And a lot of dudes break. These fighters haven't. In particular, those 3. What do they all have in common? All of them. All 3. 2 weight class undisputed. All 3 of them. All 3 of them undefeated. All 3 of them, a lot of title fights. A lot of title fights. And for Usyk in particular, on the road. He's doing it on the road. He's making concessions. You ask an American fighter to make some concessions. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I need to be in the A side. I need to walk second. He needs to come over here to do it. 60-40, 55-45, whatever. That's another thing to value about Usyk is you don't hear about that stuff. He'll go on the road. I never know what Usyk's making. Never know. I never know what the split is. Never know. Never hear about whose name's going to be first on the fight poster. Never hear about it. It's a privilege watching this dude's career. It really is. And as far as the fight, once again, it was very easy. To me, it was an easy fight to score. To me, other than comparative rounds and amateur style scoring, there's no way. This is no way if you're using real professional scoring and you're leaving out comparative rounds. You dudes need to realize that every round is a fight. It's 12 separate fights. Every round is a fight. You're not comparing round 11 to round 9. You're not comparing round 12 to round 9. You're not comparing 11 to 10. And I see you dudes do this a lot. You see dudes scoring points, and maybe they land 12 shots as compared to somebody's 8 in the round, but whose were more effective? This isn't amateur boxing. It's not the Olympics. And on top of that, we're not comparing rounds 11 and 12 to Fury getting battered in round 9. Score round 11 on its own. Score round 12 on its own. If you watch those rounds individually, you're not going to see Tyson Fury winning those rounds. You're not. Usyk was a better fighter, better man, more clutch, and now he's undisputed. See y'all tonight on the round table. God bless. Peace.